What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my week 2 of learning Greek. This week I'm going to go ahead and pop my numbers up here so you can go ahead and see where I'm at. And I just want to go ahead and acknowledge that my numbers aren't necessarily going to be as much as Eric or Jarin's. I go about it a little bit differently, which is the brilliance and beauty of language learning and even its program. So my numbers might not seem as crazy, because I know Jarin's already I think almost 4,000 French words, and Eric, of course, is blowing Japanese out of the water there. But this is where I'm at, and I know that last week I said that I wanted to listen several hours a day, and here's where you kind of call an audible. When I'm at work, I'm sitting there and I'm trying to listen, and I realized probably about half an hour in that it wasn't even passive listening. It was literally audio on in the background, and I had no clue as to what was going on. And I do know that there's some theories around this that it can help, but I thought it was kind of wasted time, and it was kind of like buffering buffing my link statistics, and that's not what this is about at all. So if I was doing any kind of passive listening, I was listening to stuff on YouTube, or I was listening to stuff, wherever, and that made me feel a lot better. So the 2.5 hours that you see there is predominantly, that is active listening, active study. So it's, and that I feel a lot better about in terms of that, which again, Link, I did study more than 2 hours this week. Link is not the only thing that I'm using. It's just, it's a big part of what I'm using. In terms of reading, you'll notice that the reading looks down. I don't know why I forgot this. In Link, the one thing that you do have to do, after you finish a lesson, it'll count you those words once. When you read it again, if you hit the 3 little dots at the top of the screen, you can actually add an additional, that you've read it an additional time. And so I wasn't doing that, so it looks like I'm down. As far as goals this week go, I'm going to try to read 10,000 words this week. That is my goal. I don't have a goal for known words or anything, because I think setting a goal like that is possibly setting yourself up for failure in terms of just wanting to kind of absorb as much of the language as possible. And again, as I mentioned last week, I think I mentioned it last week, I am going a little bit slower. I'm only through 5 mini stories right now, and that seems to be working for me. So I thought in this video, we're not too far in here. I thought I would explain to you kind of how I'm using Link, just as a random bystander that has no affiliation with the company or anything like that. This is just how I use it and how I get the most out of it. And again, everybody's different. First and foremost, I don't care about streaks or anything like that. I know a lot of people do. That keeps a lot of people motivated, and if it works for you, highly recommend it. Do your thing. But to me, I did care for a little while, but this was years ago, and then I kind of just don't care about streaks anymore. So I'm not worried about that. I have days where I will add new words. I will add new, expose myself to new words purposefully in terms of doing an additional mini story or something like that. But I also have just review days. There are days where I will literally take, for example, maybe tomorrow or something, I might just do mini stories 1 through 5, listen to all of them, read them, maybe do that a couple of times, and that will be the day to kind of enforce that, because I don't want to get too ahead of myself, which is also in turn is why the numbers look a lot lower than they do, which I think I know 114 Greek words, which if you break that out, what is that, 114 words over the course of 2 weeks, that's not really a lot. That's less than 10 words a day, but I feel like I know a lot more. The big thing about it is the words that I know, and the reason that is I will occasionally go through an entire mini story or whatever I'm working on, and I will actually shadow that audio. And I know that a lot of people, this kind of separates the language learning spectrum as to output early or output late. But personally, in terms of memorization, it actually helps me to just take a couple of sentences and say them out loud. Listen to the audio, say it. Replay the audio. The great thing about Link is, of course, you just hit the button, and a lot of times that audio is synced up, so you don't have to play and then rewind and play and then rewind. You can just press it and it plays just that audio over. And I'll listen to it a couple of times and I'll say it a couple of times, and that has really helped me a lot. So there's a lot of words that I know via Link that I can actually replicate now, versus just being able to kind of recognize them when they're being spoken to me. And there's some sentences that I can, there's just some things like, I know that Pilates is customer or something of that nature, and I know Milao is speak, and I know that there's just some different thing. Filicus, which is like happy or friendly, and then you've got like there's some other more complex words that I struggle with a little bit, like ex economé, which is like to save money or something like that. Like, so there's words that and again, that's part of what I want to do. Part of my goals is to directly speak to people soon. So that's why I'm doing that. Again, I know that some people frown upon shadowing and some people don't. It's kind of whatever you think that you need to do. And that's kind of the beauty of LingQ, is that no matter how you learn, it can pretty much help you in that regard. So I can shadow if I want to, or I don't have to. So, but yeah, in terms of the 114, I can't remember what it was right off, 114, I think, words or whatever it was, or maybe 124, something like that. But in terms of the amount of words that I know a lot of those, and I can actually replicate those in terms of speaking. It's not just recognition, and that in itself is slowing me down in terms of total words known, and that's okay, because again, people have different goals. So yeah, shadowing is a big part of what I do. I haven't started importing content yet, and that's just because I haven't really found any content. And so, whatever. Last week I had mentioned that I was using Greek Pod 101, but I just am not using that anymore. Just because I don't like things that are like. I'm fine with things like Pimsleur, where it's like tells you to say something and it's constant repetition, or you hear it a little bit. But when it's a 14-minute podcast and there's 30 seconds of dialogue, I mean, it's 11 and a half minutes wasted, and I just didn't want to pay for just those dialogues. Like, I wish that I could just pay like a flat rate, and then they would just send me all the dialogues and all the dialogues, or like the transcriptions, but I don't think that you can do that. And yeah, that's really about it. That's how I use it. I shadow, I have review days because I'm not overly concerned about streaks, and that is it. In terms of confidence, my confidence in Greek, it's not great, but like the things that I know how to say, I'm actually pretty cool with. Like, I know, and it's random stuff, and that's fine. I mean, that's part of getting your foot in the door, or your kind of a grasp on that language, is kind of this idea that, I can say a couple of things, but like if I really wanted to tell someone that I wake up at a certain time in the morning, I can totally do that. So I can say, Secondo stis eta kafe. I wake up every morning at 7 o'clock. That's when I go to work. I know that to work is it's hard because it's a little tough to say, but it's like Lulepso. It's very close to that. Obviously, pronunciation is something I need to work on, and that's why I shadow. But before this video gets too much longer, I don't know if Eric's going to cut any of this out or not, but because I can ramble forever, but I want to make these kind of short and sweet. That is my 2-week update. So I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope everybody's staying safe out there, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week for week 3, and we'll kind of see what's going on then. So thank you all for watching.